2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is November the 23rd, 2020. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Happy Monday, Carl.
It is a Monday. It is a Monday, Nick. It is a weird and unique Monday, as they all are these days.
Hey, I logged onto Twitter on my phone like yesterday. I don't go on Twitter a lot in the offseason because I like it for hockey. Does Twitter have stories now?
Yes, and it's terrible.
Why would they add that? Is it linked to your Instagram account, or like you have a separate stories for Twitter?
No, you now have to do double the content.
I'm never going to do that.
And I clicked on them once, and that was enough for me.
I don't need it.
No, did you see what they're called, though? They're not called stories.
No. What are they called?
They're called fleets.
Oh, I knew it was going to be something bird or flying related.
Is that flying related? I felt like that's ship related. It just rhymes with tweets. A fleet of birds? Is that a thing?
I thought so, but a fleet of boats sounds way more realistic.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably more of a thing. A fleet of boats, but who knows? Maybe you can have a fleet of birds.
I mean, when you Google it, lots of options show up: boats, birds, buses, bees. Maybe I stopped it after I typed in bee.
Apparently the proper name, here we go, Nick. According to the spruce.com, which I think is the most accurate website, several collective nouns can be applied to all bird species, such as flock, colony, fleet, parcel, or, my favorite now, dissimulation. So you could just say, look at that dissimulation of birds, and everyone looks at you like a psycho.
You know what I want to know? I want to know how long the marketing department at Twitter spent trying to figure out what to call their story feature. I bet you they debated all of those names.
Yeah. And they really should have just gone with stories.
Anyways, we have a show to get to today. I'm sorry to throw it off right off the bat. Yeah,
no, I mean, we do have a lot to get to. Multiple pieces of news coming out of the NHL this week, which is, I mean, that's great. We've got a very interesting top 10 list, which Nick doesn't know because there was a news story that happened this week that I learned he had no idea about. So I'm excited to share that with him and break that news to him later. Let's start with the NHL and their plan to get the players to give them some money. As you may have noticed, the NHL did not have fans this season. They did not have a full season. And I would assume, I haven't seen proper financials, mostly because the NHL will probably never release them to the public, on how much money they did or did not lose this year. But in their recent CBA extension, the players had agreed to a certain amount of money that they would hold back in their escrow, which is something we've tried to cover of what escrow is on the show before. But the NHL has said, we want more.
Is that what they said? They want higher escrow?
Hey, they want more money back. Is that not what they said?
I was under the impression, we're off to a good start here. Maybe I totally misunderstood this. I was under the impression that they had yet to begin discussions about what would happen to players' payments if the season doesn't start on time or is shortened or is delayed. Because at the end of last season, they paid them all the way through.
Correct. With like maximum escrow, which escrow is an amount that they hold back.
Yes.
And then they give it to the players to ensure that each side gets 50%. So they take some back, and then they give enough back to the players so that they hit 50%. And there's a maximum amount that they can keep.
Which is still such a weird concept to me.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Okay, so according to how I understood this then.
Yes.
The NHL is wanting the players to defer some of their money into the future based on revenue.
Based on revenue.
Yes.
So yes, that is the escrow then.
Okay. Yeah. So this is what players agreed to. They said they agreed to a 10% deferral for this coming season. They also have escrow bumped up to 20%. I believe last year was 18. So now the league can keep back 20% of their paycheck and then defer another 10%. So 30% of an NHL player's paycheck right now is already being held back this season. The league wants to hold back another 10%. So they want to now have 40% of players' salaries held back. And this does seem like something that is definitely going to be holding back the start of our season, because the league does not think that they can make money in this current format.
Right. So they're asking the players, don't get paid everything until we can afford to pay you everything.
Yes.
Essentially,
they're saying that this is, they don't know how much money they're going to have. So we're just going to not pay you until we know how much money we have to pay you. Which, I mean, as a player, where would you stand on this side? Like, how hard of a line are you holding?
I want my money. As a player, I want my money. 40% is very high.
To agree to you sign a contract this offseason with a flat cap. So contracts are already lower than they normally would be. And so you sign, a 2-year deal. You're like, I'm going to sign this 1-year contract. Or you're Taylor Hall and you just signed a $7 million deal. And they're like, you know what, Taylor? I know you signed this $7 million deal. We're going to give you 5.2.
That's crazy when you think about it.
4.2. He's going to get $4.2 million of that contract. And the rest, the league will hold on to and give to him later if it works out.
It's crazy. If I'm a player, I want my money. I'm like, if it's me, I'm saying, look, we agreed to, what was it? The 30? Yep. We agreed to 30. We signed this like historically long CBA based on the 30.
And you signed that mere months ago.
Yeah. And so now to come back and ask for more, it's a lot for me.
Now, is it enough for you that you would choose to sit out and not play? Like, would you choose to strike over this instead of just playing at the 40%?
No, I think you probably play and get paid. That being said, you got to look at what is this season going to look like? Are we talking multiple stretches of time in a bubble? Like, maybe that's less appealing to players, and they're like, you know what? For a shortened season where I have to stay away from my family every 2 weeks, maybe this is a good time to fight it and sit it out.
Well, and that's the thing, right? This now becomes not just the NHL dictating, because the Players Association was very lenient and very agreeable when they set up this bubble the last time around. Now, when you're like, we're going to keep the money, we're not going to give it to you, and you are going to still have to show up in this bubble, I think you're going to see some pushback on that, which would likely mean less bubbling for the players.
Yeah, I would think so. But I do kind of wonder if this is one of those situations where the league's like, you never know unless you ask. Let's ask the question.
Right.
Probably expect to know, but who knows?
I mean, there'll be some sort of middle ground at least, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
35%, something like that, which seems a little doable as well. So anyway, that's where we're at with the NHL coming back. This has not been resolved yet, so we're waiting on that to happen. We still don't have a schedule of when. They do still say that they want to begin January 1st, which is in 5 weeks.
I mean, wouldn't training camps have to start now?
Pretty quick, yeah. You probably want to fire those up real soon here.
I don't see how they could start on January 1st right now.
No,
like, They shut down their season last year under circumstances due to COVID-19, and the entire continent right now is deep into the second wave of COVID-19 in similar circumstances.
I would say worse circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to decide to start their season without being in a full bubble. Like, I don't see how it's going to happen right now.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen in football has somehow managed, the NFL has somehow managed to get through most of the season. They just finished week 11 in the season. They've got 6 more weeks to go. And the amount of players, the last few weeks, games haven't been canceled, but you just have entire, groups of players. Like the Raiders defense in particular this past week missed a bunch of time. And you're not practicing, you're not showing up. And it's easier to handle that when you're playing once a week, right? You can isolate. You can have these people isolate and miss some time. And sure, they're only missing practice. And by Sunday that they're ready. When you have 4 games a week that the NHL is going to be trying to cram into this, there is going to be significant amount of games played and incredibly large amounts of players missing time.
Yeah. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't sound like it would make sense for the league either, because you can't have attendance. You can't have fans going to the games right now. And that's where we know they're making all their money. So I don't know, unless there's a little more certainty out there that that they're going to be able to get butts in seats at some point in the season, I don't think they're going to take the risk and start it.
Yeah, well, and we'll see how all of this comes out, because there is the Edmonton bubble is being used by the World Juniors. They're going to be having their tournament there somehow coming up here. And so even if they're wanting to bubble, they'll have to get a little more creative than they were last time. I do agree with you, though. January 1st seems unlikely.
Well, we'll see next week on our weekly segment of NHL start date, January 1st.
Maybe. You know what we forgot? It is our second week doing it. Before we head to our next piece of news, let's head backwards. No, let's save it. We'll save before we head to, we got one more piece of real news, and then we'll do our flashback segment.
Okay, sounds good.
Big news today. And I'm as happy as could be about this. The Chicago Blackhawks announcing that Kendall Coyne Schofield is going to be their player development coach, making her the first female coach in the NHL, which is great to see.
I love it. It's very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, we saw her at the All-Star game last year. She did some announcing for NBC throughout the year, but most importantly, we saw her on the ice with Team USA and the amazing things that she could do on the ice. The Blackhawks were smart to bring in someone as talented and knowledgeable as she is.
100%. And they've really given her a pretty, like, it's not just player development. She's, I believe she's also acting under some community role for them as well as a youth hockey growth specialist. She has an all-girls hockey program called the Golden Coins, which is an amazing name for a program.
I don't know why most people, I mean, when you have the name Coyne in your last name, you kind of have to lay into that, and she very much did. It's
fantastic. So anyways, lots of good things happening for Kendall in Chicago, which is great. Love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, we saw last year, and it was a more limited role, but we saw Haley Wickenheiser with her role with the Leafs last year. And so it's great to see these professional women hockey players get in these roles and being able to use their talents to be able to help others, especially, player development. I think the women's game knows player development and some of those areas probably better than the men's game does, because they are working so much in growing the game and building talent and building those things. I think she's really a great fit for that. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations to her. let's go in the flashback machine and also touch on some more coaching, because we talked last week. We alluded to what would be happening. This is a thing we started last week where we look back at what we wrote down as show notes for this time last year when there was still hockey happening. So let's go back to our show from November 25th, 2019. Knowing that last week we talked about the Leafs, if the problem was Bab or not. The first thing we talked about on November 25th, do you recall the day where we discovered which NHL players were on the website Cameo?
No.
Where you could buy someone to say a message for you and send it to someone?
Yeah, but didn't we just talk about that recently? Was that a year ago?
That was
a year my goodness.
So
man,
anyway,
this year.
So that's what we opened the show with last year. And
who was on Cameo? Do you remember?
I know that we found, I think Nazem Kadri was on there. Gabe Landeskog. I forget what made us talk about it though. There was something that made us. Do you recall what that was?
I don't recall what that was.
Yeah, me either.
Anyways, I do remember them being at various prices.
Yeah, there was some prices. Several of them just sent the money to charity, which is great to see.
Yeah. Anyways, what else can we talk about?
So then Mike Babcock got fired by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
He did get fired. That was the week that happened.
That was the week. So we decided that Cameo was more important than Babcock.
Although, do you remember by the time he got fired, we were sick about talking about whether or not he was going to get fired?
Yeah, it was like, yeah, all right, see ya. And the only thing, I believe the Mitch Marner rank these players thing came out around that time. So it was kind of a fun thing to talk about.
That's right.
Good on Babs for that. After that, for some reason, we decided to stick around with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm not sure what he did, but Alexander Kerfoot was apparently noteworthy for us.
He had already been traded at that point?
Yeah, because he was in the Kadri trade. So maybe he signed an extension at that point in time.
Who knows?
Next, Garnet Hathaway did something stupid. Or Anne Hathaway. I just wrote down Hathaway, so it could have been either of them.
I have no recollection of that either.
It's been a while since all of these things happened. I would just leave. There's only one of these that I actually know what was happening with it. What did Hathaway do in November?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, let's see if you know this one. Robert Bertuzzo, what did he do last November? Because he also did a thing. But then the one that actually stands out to me, Dustin Byfuglien was on the note.
Okay, because that one was ongoing too. We touched on that every couple weeks.
Yeah, that was a thing where we would, give the old Dustin update.
But there was one episode where we made up a whole story about how he was on a boat and he hurt his ankle in a boating accident or something like that.
Yeah, I do recall that. That might have been this episode.
I mean, the timing feels right.
Yeah. Then we've got our best and worst of the week. Our best of the week was either someone named Brody or TJ Brody. I just have Brody written down.
I would think it's probably TJ Brody.
And we didn't have a worst of the week. We had two bests.
We did?
Our best of the week was Robin Lehner as well. So TJ and Robin had a great week. And apparently we were just feeling real positive because there was no worst of the week.
I love how we just play. The rules don't matter in our segments. We break them.
Not in the slightest. No. I mean, this is why our flashback segment, our flashback next week gets weird. Because did you know that? No, I'm not going to keep teasing it out. Next week gets weird. It'll be fun because, even more things happen next week.
Great.
Stay tuned for next week. Let's take our break here, Nick. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to talk about this news story that you have no idea about what happened and get into our top 10 list.
I'm excited.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. because Nick, and I think it's probably because of your lack of being on social media in the off season. This is how this one slipped through your fingertips.
I'm like flying blind to fun news right now.
And I'm so excited to bring this to you. Did you see, do you recall where Braden Holtby signed in the offseason?
The Vancouver Canucks.
The Vancouver Canucks, that is correct.
1 point for Nick.
All right. So he's moving there. So him, his wife, I'm not sure if he has kids. Yeah,
He's moving to the city of his new job?
Yeah.
Interesting.
As one does. So you moved in the summer.
I did move in the summer, yeah.
But like it was just within the same city, right? Like you didn't.
Correct.
Yeah. So have you ever lived in a different country?
No.
Me either. I mean, I've never even left the North America. So
I have so many thoughts on where this is going.
But I mean, going across the border, like to travel, because I've
done that a lot.
States, right? Like
I grew up in a border city.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You lived in Windsor. You go to Detroit all the time. That being said, Detroit and Windsor makes it very easy to go back and forth, or at least it did when
used to.
Yeah, when we were doing those things back in the day, it used to be very easy, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Now less so, but so there's a lot that it takes to get across a border. There's a lot of things you can and cannot do.
Yes.
Even a fairly friendly border. Braden Holtby realized this the hard way this week.
Okay. Did he go? This is going one of two ways. This is either something harmless and some weird rule that nobody's ever stumbled on before, or he went full Bob Probert.
He did not go full Bob Probert.
Okay, good.
So this is what's happened. I guess I don't know. I still don't know if he has kids. These articles that I'm looking at, I don't know. But here's one thing. I believe that he did have to leave a couple of them home because he had to leave Honey and Maple behind just momentarily. Honey and Maple, who are they, you may ask? They're the family tortoises. He tried to get his tortoises across the border and was denied entry. And so he was stuck, not able to go to Canada, but also stuck in the United States without all of his items that he's wanting. So he was stuck at the border, not able to cross as he waited for a way to get his tortoises across the border. Turns out that so he had a permit to bring the tortoises into Canada, but he did not have a permit to export tortoises from the United States to Canada. So turns out you need more paperwork than he thought.
But wait,
Braden and his wife Brandy eventually got it figured out, and he has made his way to Canada with Honey and Maple.
Honey and Maple are the tortoises.
Yeah, which terrible names for tortoises.
Okay, hold on. I'm stuck on this paperwork thing. The U.S. wants you to file paperwork for removing your pets from the country.
So you need, I do not believe that it is all things, because this is a permit that they needed from the United States Fish and Wildlife Services.
Oh,
so I think
goodness.
Because it was a tortoise, I think if you had a dog, it's fine to just bring the dog across. But I think because of the classification of a tortoise, then they had to. So, which, I mean, the best advertising for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that they've gotten, free advertising for them. They were all over making sure that people knew the kind of paperwork and the kind of things that they needed to make this happen to travel with tortoises. So, looking at their website, you need a special thing for birds, because that falls under the Wild Bird Conservation Act. If you reside in the United States and intend to make multiple border crossings with your pets, you can get something like that. Any exotic pet you need this sort of special permit for.
Okay.
So birds, reptiles, things like that.
So I feel like an idiot because I just Googled tortoises. I thought you meant porpoises at first. And I have this visual of Braden Holtby with like plastic bags with fish in the water, stuck at the airport with like his neck pillow on, unsure of where to put down porpoises. Tortoises makes a lot more sense, but are all tortoises this massive?
Well, there are pictures of Honey and Maple. They are not that big. They're a small tortoise, so they're not huge. Okay. I would say they're about the size of a Canadian football.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, my next question is, how far did he make it with these things before he was turned away?
He got right to the border and then was denied entry.
Like he landed in Vancouver and they were like, we got to send you back?
I guess so. Yeah.
Unless he made the drive, but that's a long drive.
What else do you think Braden Holtby's doing right now?
Fair.
It's him, Maple and Honey, and his wife.
This is a very funny story.
So they did make it across eventually, which is great. Do you know the difference? This leads me to a second question, which was going to be my original question, but I have so many follow-up questions after your porpoise. A porpoise, like a dolphin. You thought that Braden Holtby was carrying? Is a porpoise like? Are there smaller versions?
I thought porpoises were little fish. What? Oh my goodness.
In my head now, the way that you've described this, Braden Holtby, you say a little bag. I assume that he now has a duffel bag with a flailing around dolphin and he's trying to get it through the border. Like, hey, I need a permit for this? Yeah, Braden, you can't have that as a pet at all. You cannot own a dolphin like that.
You certainly can't wrap it in a plastic bag.
You cannot shove it in your hockey bag and try to smuggle it across the border, Braden.
So wait, what are the little fish called?
A goldfish?
I mean, yeah, but
I think this might be one of those situations we talked about a couple weeks ago where your French is leading your English.
It actually could be.
I think so.
Weird. Okay. I'm so lost right now. Okay, anyways, so turtles. He has turtles.
My question was going to be, well, because they're described as tortoises. So I want to know, which I now know you do not know the answer to this question. But what I want to know is, what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? What would you think is the difference? Because they're not the same.
I don't know. If you had shown me a picture and said Braden Holtby couldn't get these across the border, I would have said, oh, he has turtles.
You would have said, and if I had shown you a picture of a dolphin and said, did Braden Holtby try to smuggle this across the border? Is this the news story this week? You would have probably said
I would have said, oh, no, I would have said a dolphin. And then if you had shown me like one of those like colorful pools of fish that all swim sporadically around very quickly, I would have said, oh, porpoises.
All right. Well, here's some interesting differences between a turtle and a tortoise. One, a turtle has a very flat shell and a tortoise has like a dome-shaped shell.
Okay.
Turns out a turtle can shed its scales, which I've never seen. So its back, apparently those count as scales. So a turtle can shed its scales. A tortoise cannot. A turtle has claws, in case you ever wanted to be afraid of a turtle tonight. Turtles have claws and webbed feet. A tortoise does not. They just have normal feet, apparently. I don't know what a normal foot would be, but that's what they have. Tortoises do not know how to swim. Do not throw a tortoise in the water.
So tortoises must be land animals. They kind of look like dinosaurs.
Well, and they can't swim, so they have to be land animals. They cannot swim, and they can't fly either. I think the thing you're thinking of, if you thought that might be a parrot, perhaps, is what you were thinking of, or a toucan. I'm not sure. which one you're thinking.
This whole segment's going very poorly for me.
So anyways, do you want to know what our top 10 list is this week?
Yes.
Okay. Our top 10 list this week is NHL team names. They come in all shapes and sizes, right? We have things like Kings. We have Canadians. We have Lightning. Our top 10 list this week is top 10 items you cannot bring across the border. So which NHL team names would you have the most difficulty trying to bring across the border?
You know what the first one that jumped to my head was? Canadians.
Well, I mean, they can't cross the border right now. They're closed.
Exactly. Okay, I got to pull up a list of all these NHL team names. Carl, I like this.
So I have my list that I pulled up was the standings from last year. And I think let's just go through the list kind of rapid fire and see what items you could even try to bring across the border. Like, cause some of them, like, I don't know. Some of them are completely fine. Some of them would be more difficult. Okay. Some of them, like Wild, don't apply to this list. Okay. So do you want to do that?
Yes, let's do that.
So things that would at least be somewhat problematic to bring across the border. A Red Wing.
Okay.
That seems fine.
I agree.
Unless it's just the wing of an animal. I think that would be problematic.
If you declare it. Just a single Red Wing. Okay.
A Senator. That seems doable.
Yeah, I mean, they should.
Yeah. Sharks. That's going to be a problem.
That's going to be tough.
A King. The Kings.
Yeah.
Could probably bring a king could probably get across whatever border they want to.
As long as they have their passport, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I don't see why not. A duck.
Might be a little hard.
We just learned that you need a fancy permit to export a tortoise, so you probably need one for a duck.
That's right.
I don't think the devil pertains to borders. I think he's fine. He doesn't need to worry about that.
He has a global passport.
The aforementioned, a saber. Saber, you definitely will have a problem. You cannot just show up with a saber.
That's right.
Canadians. Specifically French Canadians, because it's spelled the French way. I don't think that there's any issue with them getting across the border.
Nope.
Similarly, I don't think, again, passport in hand, Blackhawks, they can get across the border.
Yeah, absolutely.
A coyote, though, could be difficult.
Yep.
The Wild.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either. A Canuck.
Same thing as a Canadian, isn't it?
Yeah. This one, I didn't really think through this idea and like all the team names. I just thought this is going to be a fun idea. This is one that for sure you're not going to get through. A Predator. That's not getting across the border.
Yeah. We don't even need to specify what kind. All predators.
All predators are denied entry. Yeah. We might have just found number one. A panther?
I think it's going to be pretty hard to get a panther across.
I think so. I think you need a permit. A flame.
I think that might be a little hard too.
But like, what's harder, getting a flame across or like keeping the flame going through security?
What's harder?
Yeah.
Probably getting it across.
All right. Flames on the list.
Yeah. I think Flames got to go on list.
Flames on the list. All right. A Ranger.
Yeah, they should be able to cross. Like I'm sure they have conferences with other countries' parks people.
Yeah, I think so. I just realized. I mean, I don't think that's what the New York Rangers. I never really thought about what they're doing, but
that's all I think of when I hear Ranger now, though.
I know, same. The Jets, getting a jet across doesn't seem easy.
What do you mean? You just fly it?
But like, you need some sort of like international permits to get across borders.
I would think so. Yes.
I think you'd have to register a flight plan, something. All right, an Islander, same thing. Right? They can get across.
Yeah, they should be able to get across.
I think this next one might be the easiest one to get across. A blue jacket. Just put it in a box and send it.
Yeah, I don't understand what the issue is there.
Yeah. A maple leaf.
Again, should be easy.
The wind can blow it there. A hurricane.
Can you carry a hurricane or bring it with you?
Now, what if we're talking about the like Louisiana style beverage?
That is going to be very hard to get across the border because you'll have to be standing.
That's true. So a hurricane. So maybe a hurricane's too large because
too big.
When we're going to get into that issue further on. A star, probably also too big, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Or are we talking celebrities?
I mean, my head first went to stars in the sky, and then I thought, but if they're on Earth, they've probably died and fallen already. But movie stars?
They can easily cross borders.
I would think so.
Yeah. An oiler. Same thing. I don't think people in the oil industry have any issues crossing borders.
Nope.
This one might be an issue, though. A golden knight. Because you'd have all that armor, a sword. That could not be easy.
Also, if it's all made of gold, that's a lot of duty you're going to have to pay on it.
Yeah, that's true. Declaring that suit, it's going to be a chore. A penguin.
Pretty hard, I would think.
I would think so.
They probably have to file the same paperwork as the tortoises.
I think so, yeah. A flyer? I mean, most people are flyers when they travel across borders.
Yeah, that's easy.
A capital. I don't even know what that means.
No, me neither. Like a capital letter? We all have capital letters in our names.
Yeah. Or like flying into the capital city. That doesn't make any sense, Washington. Figure it out. A lightning. Just one lightning.
I mean, I don't know, Carl. Unless you're Zeus, you can't hold on to the lightning.
Yeah. I mean, capturing lightning in a bottle is not easy from what I've heard.
No.
Similarly, an avalanche.
No.
This next, we got two more left. I would say this next one, we all travel with across the border at some point in time, depending on what the blues.
And it ain't hard to bring it.
No. And lastly, a Bruin. A bear across the border could be difficult.
Yeah. So this is mostly just a list of all the NHL teams that are named after animals. Open flame, a golden knight, and a plane.
Yes.
Okay.
All of these are things. So we've got, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11. So we're going to have one honorable mention. Which one of these do you think would be the easiest to bring across the border?
Hold on, I got 12 on my list. Which one did you leave a Red Wing on?
No.
Okay.
Here's what I got. Sharks.
Yes.
Ducks.
Yes.
Sabres.
Yes.
Coyotes.
Yes.
Predators.
Yes.
Panthers.
Yes.
Flames.
Yes.
Jets.
Yes.
Golden Knights.
Yes.
Penguins.
Yes.
Bruins.
Yes. I wonder how many people listened through that whole list that we just went through. Okay.
That's 11. That's 11.
Yeah, I know, but I had Red Wings written down.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Well, there you go. There's your recap. Which one of those 11 do you think would be the easiest to bring across the border?
I'm going to say I don't know. I don't know the logistics that go into bringing a jet across the border, but that one seems the easiest to me because planes go back and forth all the time.
That seems reasonable to me.
Right?
Yeah, you can just file your flight plan. And you need, I mean, the hard part is being able to fly the jet. Getting it across the border seems trivial at that point.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, honorable mention, Winnipeg Jets.
Good.
I think the next one would probably be a Sabre. Because I bet you could check that in baggage and just get it across. Because, like,
yeah, that's a good point.
There's ways that, like, because when you go through security at the airport, for example, they never ask you, like, do you have a sword in your luggage? They ask you if you have, like, firearms in your luggage.
Yes.
I think you could very easily put a sword in your checked bag and bring it across the border.
Yeah, but that would have to be a very long checked bag. But yeah, I think you're right.
I would say when you're done carrying dolphins across the border, you could just use that bag for your swords. Seems reasonable, right?
Seems reasonable. I wonder how long the average Sabre is, though.
I don't know. I mean,
105 centimeters.
So like a meter, which is a yard for those in the South.
That's not that long.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't put it in your average suitcase, but
you could figure it out. I mean, people bring like skis on planes.
Yeah. I imagine. I mean, you could even smuggle that into a golf bag, right? People bring golf clubs on planes all the time. You just have your lucky sword there.
Easy peasy. Sabre number 10.
Sabre's number 10. What do you got next?
Next, I'm going to go with a flame.
You think that'd be pretty easy? So what source is this flame coming from in your
Well, so this is where the debate is. Because you can bring a lighter across the border if you're a smoker.
Especially if you're driving. I mean, in the 90s, we were all bringing them across the border because we kept them, like, our cars came with them.
They're literally in the car at all times.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's not a flame, but it could easily start who hasn't started a fire with one of those car igniters, even if you don't smoke?
Now, like, if we're talking about like a torch or a car that's on fire, that's going to be harder to cross the border with.
It's true. Yeah. An active flame across the border. But if you had like a Zippo lighter in the passenger seat, they might give you a weird look. But I'm sure if you play Born in the USA as you're doing it, it'll probably just wave you on through.
Yeah, right? I would think so.
Yeah.
But is an open flame easier to get across than most of these wild animals?
I think so. I think as long as it's not at an airport. I think an open flame in an airport would be harder than an open flame in just in your car or walking.
Yeah, or by boat.
Yeah. I'm sure they discourage open flames on boats for some reason. Like, I'm not sure why. It's not like there's gases around. You probably need to fix your boat if that's a problem, but yeah, it seems fine. All right, flame. That's number 9. I would say next up, and I almost argued to put this above flame or like below flame. I wanted this one number 9. I'm fine with it number 8. I think a duck. Because ducks are wild animals. They fly across the border all the time.
That's true. And when you line it up with all these other wild animals, it's certainly the least dangerous.
Yeah, way less problematic, right? You've got a duck because you'll find a banded duck where they've like banned it for research, and then that flies across the border. Seems completely fine.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, duck number 8. Now, I think I know what comes in it for me at 7. What do you have?
You do? Oh, this is where this is getting harder for me. So, I mean, I if we're talking about danger of the animals, I think a penguin is the least dangerous next, but it's also more exotic than some of these other animals, which I think would be harder to get across.
It's true. I think you would definitely need that Braden Holtby paperwork to get a penguin across the border.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I have no idea what would go into bringing a golden knight across the border. So we may need to leave that one for later.
I assume that you are the golden knight trying to get across the border in this scenario.
I still wouldn't know where to start.
Like, I assume that you are off to your annual LARPing excursion in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
The LARPing capital of America. And
is that true?
No.
Oh, okay. You said it so convincingly.
I bet the LARPing capital is probably like Des Moines. That seems more like the LARPing capital.
Probably.
With all due respect to Des Moines. Yeah, I think that would be difficult to in full LARPing gear to get across the border.
Do you want to know where is actually the LARPing capital of America?
Yes.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So we could catch a Hurricanes game and go LARPing in the same trip and barbecue.
It's got to be, when quarantine lifts, that's got to be our first fourth line live trip.
Live podcast coming to you from the LARPing capital of America, Raleigh, North Carolina. Wow. That is so unexpected.
Yeah, right? But also hilarious for some reason.
Yeah. The Carolinas are a real mixed bag.
They really are. I never think of them, and then this stuff happens.
Yeah. The more you know. All right. So we've got...
Well, you where are you at number 7? I
was thinking Penguins as well.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I would say they're difficult to own, but there's no like fear. You mostly just like, I'm sure if you got to the point of owning that penguin, you're probably used to the paperwork required to do so.
I would think so, and it's not like it can fly away.
Some penguins can fly.
Are they real penguins? I mean, I'm not going to stretch my animal knowledge anymore today, so.
I believe there are some flyable penguins, but I could be wrong. Maybe I am wrong.
But a penguin from Pittsburgh are not the flying kind.
No, certainly they are very much land-based.
They're the waddling kind. So if it gets out of the car accidentally while you're waiting in line at customs, it's not going to like get away and out into the wild.
Correct. I am wrong. Penguins are entirely flightless birds.
Okay.
So that's one for you in the win column.
Thanks for taking the L on that one. I needed that.
Hey, it's not just you who doesn't fully understand animals. All right. So we've got left a shark, a coyote, a predator, a panther, a golden knight, and a bear.
I mean, these are all at pretty equal levels, I think. Minus the golden knight. That's another issue.
The golden knight is something entirely different than the rest of these.
Yes.
I want to say that a coyote is the smallest of these, thus making it the easiest to get across. Yeah.
I mean, it's roughly the size of a dog, or it could be roughly the size of a dog. So, it can fit in those little cages.
Well, that's what I'm not suggesting you do this. But if you're trying to bring a coyote across the border, could you not just pass it off as a pet dog and do that?
They do look a lot like dogs.
Yeah, they are a dog. There's a wild dog. So yeah. Now that I'm at this point, I'm honestly thinking a coyote should be further down this list.
Easier than a penguin? Probably.
I think passing a coyote off as a dog would absolutely be easier than trying to get a penguin across the border.
Easier than a duck?
Not. I still like my duck logic. So what, are we thinking?
Yeah, this whole conversation is very logical, Carl.
So what, are we thinking coyote slots in at 7 and we bump the penguin up to 6?
Yeah.
And our coyote is just, we're playing it off as a dog. Again.
That's right.
Logical progression here.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a big win for the Penguins.
Penguins moved up on the list, which is great for them. I think so. All right. Now this gets even hard.
I mean, if you're bringing a shark across, how?
That's logistics of bringing a shark across the border is the biggest issue here. I mean, we should talk to your porpoise person. I'm sure they could give us some tips.
I don't think there's plastic bags big enough.
Could be a baby shark. It doesn't say the size of this shark.
It could be a baby shark. That is true. No, I think sharks is higher up on this list, which means I'm leaning like panther, Bruin, or golden knight.
I'm leaning panther or golden knight. I think it would be harder to bring a bear across than a panther.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with that.
So we're at the stage. So panther and golden knight are our next two. I'm going to take the stance that a golden knight would be harder than a panther. What do you think?
Harder than a panther? I was going to say easier than a panther.
Why do you say easier?
I feel like it would be easier to negotiate with a customs officer over attire / shields than a wild animal like a panther.
Yeah. Now, do you think you have to like take off your helm to be able to fully have this conversation with the border officer, or how are you making this happen?
I mean, I would definitely lift my visor.
Yeah, smart.
For sure. Thank you. But I could still have a conversation with him about like what's happening here.
Right. Like, you got this ticket to Raleigh, and no, you cannot take your suit off because your traditional night garb, you don't wear anything under it.
That's right.
So pick your poison.
That's right. Yeah, I think it would just be easier to explain away the Golden Knight attire, armor, costume, whatever it is. Like, if we're talking LARPing, this is an easy one compared to a panther in the trunk.
This is in the trunk. I assumed it was in the back seat or the front seat. If it's buckled in, if it's buckled in, then you're completely fine. Be like, officer, this is my pet panther. He's wearing a seatbelt, as you can see. And then, as you were, you wave you on by.
Okay, no, I'm going Golden Knight.
Okay, Golden Knight is the fifth hardest. Panther is fourth, which leaves us with a shark, a predator, and a Bruin. What kind of predator are we going with? Because their logo, saber-toothed tiger. Is that what we're going with as our version of a predator?
Yeah, we should probably stick with what's closest to on the sweater.
Now, are we taking into account then that they don't exist anymore?
What do you mean by that? Like, is the fact that they just don't exist make them the easiest one to get across?
But the hardest, they literally don't exist. Like, you try to take a saber-toothed tiger across the border.
No, I think we need to play this as if they do exist. Like, what would it be like trying to get a saber-toothed tiger across this border?
Okay, well then I'm very glad with my choice. That's a cat, right? Yeah, it's a tiger. It's a cat.
Yeah.
Okay, as you were.
And it has saber teeth.
Right. So it is, I mean, it's like trying to take a saber and a panther across the border at the same time.
It is kind of like that, yeah.
And we saw where those two fit.
Why is the team from Nashville a saber-toothed tiger?
I think they found remains when they
Did they find remains in when they were building the arena?
I think so.
Okay, I accept that. That's actually a really cool story.
I think so. I think that's how that happened. So, all right. So we've got this saber-toothed tiger, which I know what they look like. I assume that they're large.
I'm gonna pull it up for a quick second here just to make sure I know what we're talking about. These are terrifying.
Okay, so which one's bigger, that or a bear?
I mean, based on some of these pictures, obviously they're not real photos. These things are massive. This is way scarier than a bear.
Okay.
In my opinion.
For those of us, including myself, who cannot see what you've been looking up, can you give us 3 characteristics that make it scary?
Its teeth. First of all, it's got these 2 giant like vampire teeth that are massive, the sabers. These pictures have it like very built upper body and front paws, like massive shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Just crazy. And did you want 2 or 3 characteristics?
If you got a third one, hit me.
I don't. Very mean looking face. It looks very mean.
There we go. So those are, so are we putting bears at 3 then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm with you on that one. And I think this is fitting. A large saber-toothed tiger versus a shark, which one seems like a Discovery Channel special.
Is a shark also a prehistoric animal?
I think so. I'm sure there's like a very close relative to what would be considered a prehistoric animal. Yeah. So we've got our prehistoric saber-toothed tiger and we've got our shark. Logistics wise, the shark is going to be way harder.
I would think so. Because even if you're crossing by boat, where's the shark going?
Is it on a leash and you're just swimming alongside? Like when you're real lazy and you take your dog for a jog?
That's right. I just don't see how you're going to get that shark. And then you got to explain to the customs officer.
Why? And where is it going to?
Exactly.
I assume that it's an aquarium-based adventure.
How do they transport sharks to aquariums? Giant water trucks?
I think a water truck. Yeah, like that truck that waters the garden or like the flowers in your neighborhood. Sometimes
just sharks in there.
Are all sharks saltwater sharks?
I don't know. I'm going to stop guessing at this point.
Okay. This is something that, for those who tuned in for hockey content, they've tuned out long ago. This has become
tuned out last week.
Yeah, but come on. That was a great... I started watching on Netflix, the American Barbecue Showdown.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I also found a recipe for smoked queso. When this quarantine's lifted, you're coming over and we're having smoked queso and you're going to regret. We're going to have a special episode that we're going to record in which you take back everything you said about putting queso 4th on that list last week. And you're just going to list all the reasons why. 6th! You put queso 6th on that list last week, and you're going to have a special episode just of apologies.
Okay. I accept your invitation, or I look forward to accepting your invitation.
Nonetheless, back to sharks.
And I think a shark is going to be harder. Like, if at this point we figured out how to get a coyote and a panther and a penguin across the border, all land-based animals, I think we can figure out how to get a saber-toothed tiger across the border.
But like, I can't pass off a saber-toothed tiger as my dog. I can't just buckle it into the front seat of my car.
No, you cannot.
So
you gotta keep that baby distracted with some raw meat in the back seat.
Well, and so now you want to bring raw meat across the border, Nick. This is even harder. It's like you've never crossed a border before.
It's still, just think of it this way. Land-based animal, water-based animal. Which one's going to be easier to get across?
True. I mean, and even if you were to assume, which we did, I don't know why it took us up until this point, but even if you assume that you have tranquilized this animal and are bringing it across very docile, a tranquilized saber-toothed tiger is just a big thing. You still do not have to worry about the water issue. And I do think the water is going to be your biggest difficulty.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure if you can tranquilize water-based animals.
Surely you can.
But like, can they, because like, let's say you tranquilize a whale and it needs to go get some oxygen through its blowhole. Like, do you need to just lift the whale up yourself, float it to the surface? Or when whales are tranquilized, do they float? I don't know.
I don't know either. You're really making my brain work tonight in ways it shouldn't have to work.
Happy Monday, Nick. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday indeed.
Well, this was a win for the Sharks. Congratulations. Sharks are the number one most difficult NHL team mascot to get across the border. And I would argue that that would probably be unanimous for a lot of people. We would probably agree with that. If you disagree, you can tell us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast. You can send us an email, mail@thefourthlinepodcast.com. If the size of a Twitter DM or a 280 character tweet is not enough for you, head on over there and send us your thoughts. We're at our website is thefourthlinepodcast.com, where you can find new spots to find us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the Full Press Radio app, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. We are there for you. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week, where we will review a flashback. We'll have another top 10 list, and we will probably have no idea even further of when the NHL is coming back.
But we will talk about it.
But we'll guess. Is
that it? It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Braden Holtby had some trouble with his porpoise. Oops, I did it again. I meant to say tortoise.
This is what I thought you were going to say. And yours was better, so I'm glad. Oops. But Braden Holtby had a problem with his porpoise. No, that wasn't a mistake. I made that joke on porpoise.